Blerdlines. It's your man Cam. With me, as always, is
Cam 2, the last action Negro back in the house.
as well as
Darth Coconut, aka Josh.
And you already know Professor D educating us on Dune. The new Dune 3 trailer just dropped. Dune was going to be released at the end of the year, December 18th, I believe. And that's going to be some very interesting things going on because there's a bunch of stuff released in that time. But today we're going to talk about Dune.
Hans Zimmer, I can't wait for his score to drop. I mean, I don't know if this is the true name, but someone labeled that on YouTube the Golden Path. But I don't know if that's the actual name. But if it is, it will be probably the perfect one because I do think that he's going to probably mention it because Dune Messiah was around a time where he does start to talk about the Golden Path. But I won't go too far into what that is. Just to say that Paul was doing all that he could to avoid the Golden Path. Even in this story, he's doing it, which is what makes Leto so interesting.
That, first of all, that was a brilliant trailer.
Yeah, that has to be said right out the gate. That was just, I had goosebumps watching that. And I got the same sensation that I got watching the first one. And I couldn't get to the theater, so I wound up watching it on a laptop when it was released, and I had my really good engineering headphones on, and I almost cried. It sounded so good. It was just so amazing. It didn't matter that I didn't get to see it in the theater because it sounded so good on my headphones. Like having it right jammed in my ears like that was the only thing that can be better than having seen it in the theater. So I just cannot wait to see this thing in a Dolby Cinema, like a proper, really good Dolby Cinema environment. It's going to be so crunchy. But that aside, I also can't wait for this installment of the story and to see what, and like Dee mentioned, it looks like they're going to bring in elements from the book after, to sort of tighten things up a little bit and probably shore up a couple of story points. So I'm really curious to see where Denis Villeneuve goes and what he does and how he sort of ropes in the things that he needs to rope in order to tie off this installment of the story. Yeah, I agree. I think because we did see that there's clearly going to have to be a reconciliation between Paul and Chani based on where they left things off. And I'm willing to bet that's probably going to be the very first scene we see is him going after her in the south of the Iraqi desert to mend things. And he did say to his mother that, she'll forgive him. And we know she has to because that's how the story takes place. But they just, once again, visually, it looks a lot of the stuff that I was seeing, it's exactly how I envisioned. And this is the second live action adaptation of Dune Messiah. The first was the miniseries.
Oh, I forgot about the miniseries. That's right.
Years ago, yeah.
Yep.
And so this is the first, and that one combined the two books. So
right.
it was super long because it didn't shortchange anything. But this is the first time we get it from that sort of grand scale Hollywood style. And I have to say, like, most of the major events, at least the ones that I saw, that I know what they are, it's exactly how I imagined it happening as Herbert, especially one very specific thing. And also a shout out to Pattinson, man. Just when you don't stretch his acting a little bit further, he looks brilliant as Skytel, and Skytel is one of the three main antagonists of the story. And he's a very specific type of human being that exists in this world. I think they call face dancers or something like that.
Yes.
And then we get to see
the return of Momoa's character, or at least a version of it. This character's name is not Duncan Idaho. It's Hate. That's not revealing anything. Hayt. I always thought of it as hate in my head, and I think it was Herbert being cheeky bait. And I won't reveal why. You'll have to see that when you see when you watch it. But I believe it was always hate because of what his role is in the story and what he's intended to do. But we see a shot of what's her name? Is it Anya Taylor-Joy?
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy's Alia. And Alia is one of my favorite characters aside from Stilgar. And I'm really looking forward to Stilgar in this one because Stilgar has a different role and it's more political. So can you imagine how much fun Javier Bardem is probably going to have trying to be a restrained Fremen who's like trying to do things Paul's way. But it's from what I see with this trailer, it looks like once again, DV is, I mean, this probably is going to be the closest. This is going to be the sci-fi trilogy of this generation era that is akin to, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or even maybe even on a smaller scale, the Dark Knight trilogy and things like that. Because
hold on, I thought they were only doing the 2 films.
No, this is the third one.
This is the third one. They're doing.
I'm tripping. This is the third one, right? Yeah, sorry, yeah, my brain combines the first 2 all the time. It's the first book. It's the first book in
the first book. So I get why that happens.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah.
I have to separate them because technically, the first 2 films is one book, and then this one is a book and a half. And the only reason I'm saying a book and a half is because they cast older versions of Paul and Channy's children, and in Dune Messiah they are still infants, although they are infants with special gifts. I'll just say that. Yeah. But they're not infants now. So it'll be, I'm looking forward to the type, because all the changes he's made thus far have been things that make sense. And I think things that honor how Frank Herbert wanted this to be seen. And he didn't do it. He himself, Frank Herbert, he has gone on in interviews and talked about how, and all but said without saying it, that he felt he failed with the first Dune because people saw Paul as a hero, and that wasn't his point. His point was more about the toxic nature of a charismatic leader and why we should run from those people instead of flocking towards them. And so Messiah was meant to course correct. And I think Children of Dune and God Emperor, he just kind of kept going to try to course correct, to say
he just kept turning the bus, boy.
He had to drive it into, like, they are not the heroes. The Atreides are not the heroes. They are the protagonists, but they are not good. They are not the heroes.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, it makes sense. But
he hammered that point home.
He did. By the time God Emperor he made it so that you would not look at Leto the same way you saw Paul. Not at all. Not even when he's still partially a real boy, when he's young. Like, he makes Leto exactly what Paul was trying not to be, but he makes Leto aware that he's being this person because it is necessary.
Right.
And it's good. It's good because then I would say American audiences are used to the hero, not the protagonist. And so they always want to look at the person as a quote unquote good guy, but not as the main part of the story. And so I think in Dune, that's the one thing I do like about this whole thing, from the source material onto the screen. You start to see that thing where the audience is now starting to understand that, where it's like, yes, this is the protagonist of the story, but he's not necessarily a good guy or the hero type, if you want to put it like in the traditional sense, if you want to.
He has his family taken. Go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
People still view Paul as people still view Paul as a hero, and
I have a very strong feeling that Denis Villeneuve is gonna again, part of turning that bus. He's gonna make it very clear, like Paul. There was Paul before he drank the water and the water of life, and there's Paul after. And Paul after is a very different beast from who he was before. And I think he's gonna make it very clear that Paul knows what he's supposed to do and fights against it.
And that's the crux of this story. Is Paul is aware of what he has become, and he's aware of how his subjects, if you will, the Imperium, how they see him. And he's also aware that his work is far from done in terms of being the one that is supposed to teach humanity, show humanity the way out of stagnation, out of this sort of the stagnation that we see at the beginning. One group, three groups hold all the power. They don't really change. They share, all the. So the whole idea is to break humanity out of that monotony, out of that stagnation, so that they remember the sort of those basic things of survival, of being able to build communities, but in a diverse way. I can't go into it too much because it might reveal some of the things that are coming, but these are the themes that we're going to get in Dune Messiah. I mean, by the time we see Paul in present day, a lot has happened. 12 years has passed. They have fought an entire holy war and won, but not without almost scorched earth. So this, when we get that scene with Jessica, it's clearly right after he starts the war. And when she says it to him, and that's another change because Jessica isn't in Dune Messiah at all. She doesn't reappear until Children of Dune. So I'm assuming that some of her scenes are going to be flashbacks or set early in the film, because when we meet him later, he's the ruler and he's not necessarily. She's back on Caladan, but I'm not spoiling anything because we don't know where he's going to take this, and there's already a few things that he's changed.
So here's the thing. I'm glad we kind of recap part 1 and part 2 because I was like, how many of the books is in part 1, part 2? My question for myself going into this third movie is how many changes and how will it affect my viewing after I read this book? Because there was things
first. Are you going to read the book first or are you going to see the film first?
I'm going to read the book first. So when I watch the movie, I'm going to know these changes happen because when I read Dune, or when I watched the movie and then I read Dune, I wouldn't say I'm not saying I was mad. I was just kind of questioning, like, why did he do these changes? Because there were things that were very important in the book that were not highlighted in the film that I personally thought had some significant role. The dynamic between Chani and Paul after he said he was gonna marry old girl. The Aaliyah cutting the throats. Like, curious why that was taken out. It wasn't important, but I also felt this adds to the mystique to her. The first child that the first child,
it would have set the stage for who Aaliyah is after by seeing that. I understand.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just curious of what changes are going to happen because, again, I never got the sense of Fade Rotha's and Baron Harkonnen's dynamic in the movie that I got in the book, and how that whole thing.
He cut that. He kind of made it less sexual and more just about a sort of predatory power dynamic between them.
And it's fine. I have no qualms with it. It's just things that I noticed. So, and there was a few other things, that Hara, James's widow, is an important character for me that I thought was an important character in the role she plays going forward. Now, I haven't read the second book, so I don't know, but I just thought there was a significant thing right there.
I think that was more show that I agree. I can't say that. I think that was one of those changes that I understood why it happened. Because it probably requires a little bit more venturing into the more specifics of Fremen culture, and perhaps what it seemed like to me is he was going for the greater scope themes and leaving some of the more minor themes as either leitmotif. So you see, so like the Baron Harkonnen and Fade Rotha aspect, we don't get the same. We don't know what's going on in Baron Harkonnen's mind like we do in the book, where he's literally, kind of he's aroused by Fade Rotha's presence, and he's like checking him out, and it's very, very I don't know if Fade Rotha is an adult, but it's very pedophilic and very gross, and so I think he just moved that aside and just focused on the fact that these two are gunning for the same type of power play, because that paralleled the power thing between Emperor Shaddam and Leto.
So here's the thing. So the dynamic between them in the book, it was like you had this homoerotic pedophilia thing, but you also had, they were trying to kill each other, low key. They were trying to one up each other. So I never got that sense in the movie, opposed to when I read the book. And I was like, oh, this is an interesting dynamic, which brings much more depth. Also, I felt like Fade Rotha didn't get enough screen time. That's one of my negative gripes about I get it.
He was a point of view character in the book. He was not a point of view character in the movie. At least not as much as he was in the book.
Right. And he also, and I think Denis Villeneuve also tried to angle it towards like smoldering animosity. Like there's a scene, but after the Colosseum fight, he basically runs up on him. So, yo, like you tried to set it up for me to, like, I should kill you right where you said. So he threw that in there as representative of, I think, the larger what the book how the book represented their relationship. So I think that was just like so I agree with D. Saying all that to say, I agree with D. There were things that he used to sort of allude to things that were in the book and sprinkle it in here and there, but it wasn't like heavy-handed. I'm going to try to kill you. You're going to try to kill me. I'm going to try to, like back and forth, back and forth that you see in the book.
This is why I felt like, and I said this on our pod on Dune, that I need to go read the book because I felt something was missing and I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't think anything's missing. I think what DV has done is created a way for you to enjoy the movie.
Yeah,
and still appreciate the book for what it is, because
gutting the story.
Here's the thing about that.
Without treading on what Herbert had done because we don't need. Here's the reason we don't need the Fade Rotha, as much of the Fade Rotha Harkonnen and his uncle back and forth, is because even in the books and in the show and the movie, it never materializes to anything. It is only a dynamic between the two characters. You can show in cinema, you can show that once and establish it, and then you can move on, unless there is a payoff narratively for it down the road. Meaning, at the end, it is Fade Rotha who deals the death blow to Harkonnen, or Harkonnen causes Fade Rotha's death. That's not what we get. We get a whole nother. So that hate that they have, or that dynamic, it's a MacGuffin. And there's a lot of MacGuffins in Dune in general, in the book. So that's what I'm.
But I also took this as that I'm understanding, what is the species of the Harkonnens? What do you call them?
They're human.
Okay, they're human. I didn't understand if this is a one-off thing between them or is this culture. So this is, I was trying to understand the characters, each section of characters, the human,
it's
those
certainly
type
familial.
Of yeah. So this is what I was trying to understand. But I mean, again, it's not like a big deal.
No,
but I also feel like when you do Dune, and again, I'm new to this, but I've always heard people can't do Dune because you're leaving out stuff. You're leaving something out. And now we're at a point where Denis has made some cuts that doesn't disturb the entirety of Dune, and you still get the gist of the story the best way it can be told. But I also feel in my heart of hearts, which is not a realistic ask, is that when you do Dune in its entirety, because it's Dune. After reading the book, I feel like you should be able to get the budget. Obviously, it's not a realistic thing, but when you do Dune and you take on Dune, you got to bring on all of Dune. But
you should read. You should watch the miniseries then.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to.
It's close. It's closer. It's not an exact one for one adaptation, but it's closer to the book than probably anything else.
And it's also 8 hours. It's also almost 8 hours.
Just say it's 8 hours long.
That's what I was going to allude to. That's what I was coming home to say I should watch the miniseries because it gives more time for me to get these characters, understand this world, understand the culture, understand the nuance between what I get in the book, and it'll probably be the closest representation of what I'm probably looking for. But the movie is not a bad movie. These are just small.
Yeah. No, I get it. I think it's about expectations versus what you get. And, honestly, I think for me, it's not about what they change or or what they leave out, because some of those details don't work for the mode of cinema. Just like some details from A Song of Ice and Fire could not work for the mode of television production. There a lot of this stuff, like, for example, when David Lynch tried to do some of the style of the book in his film, it fell flat. It didn't work. And I'm specifically talking about how we got shots of characters moving, lips not moving, but we're getting their inner monologue. We're hearing their thoughts. That's very literary, but it does not translate to the mode of cinema. And
it's what made the movie goofy.
That's what a lot of people complained about.
It was like every 5 minutes you see someone going spice. Like,
the one that took me out was when Gurney Halleck, who was played by Patrick Stewart, is doing the training, and I remember clearly in the book when Paul thinks, "What's wrong with Gurney today?" And Kyle MacLachlan looking like, and he's like, "What's wrong with Gurney today?" He's like moving around. So I'm like,
so here's the thing.
That's why you read the book. You don't need that in the film.
So let me cop some bill for David Lynch, and I haven't even watched the movie, but I also want to say, if he was to do this movie now with the technology we have now, would the approach be different to, not in a literary sense, because you're absolutely right. There's things in the book you cannot convey to cinema.
Yeah, absolutely.
But how would the approach be different if he had the technology?
He probably would be able to make a movie that closer to what Denis Villeneuve made, because they pretty much jailhouse raped the story in the original 80s in the David Lynch movie. It's completely different from the book. What ends up on the screen ends up being this really trippy, goofy, sort of Space Casey, sort of 80s style sci-fi film, and Dune is not that at all.
I don't think Lynch understood Dune the way that it's clear DV understands Dune, and I can feel that every time I rewatch those movies. It's the same feeling I had when I read the first 4 books. But in a different way. And I do agree with you, Cam. I think that there are some things that were left out that I would not have left out, or were changed that I probably would not have changed. I had to wrap in my head the whole Chani Paul thing and Josh knows this because I've often said that Chani is like my favorite fictional ride or die. Like
we don't get that in Dune. I never got that in Dune.
No, you don't. You absolutely don't. But what I respect is he doesn't give it to us halfway. He doesn't give it to us at all. And because there's a scene where a Fremen, before he drinks the water of life, where Paul's sleeping, he's dreaming, and there's a Fremen dude who's still doubting that he's the Mahdi, tries to creep up and knife him in his sleep, and he wakes up. Paul finishes his sleep. He wakes up. Chani's not next to him. He goes out and he sees her literally sitting on like a sand mound, just like chilling, Chris knife in her hand, and there's like a dead body splayed, like a dude have her like way bigger than her splayed in front of her, and Paul's like, what's going on here? And she's basically like, he's a non-believer. I should also say, Chani in the books was also very.
She was down from day one.
Like she was not. There was no sect that he showed that was that anti-Paul. Not until the third book. There was no dissenting voice amongst the Fremen at all. They all looked at him with the same eyes that Stilgar did, including Chani. So when he addresses her, confronts her, he's just like, she's like, this one didn't believe. He wanted to take your water, so I got his. Oh, I think that's what she was doing. She was siphoning his water or whatever when Paul walked up on her. Wow. And she told him the story. And so from that point on, that's when I referred to her as like the baddest fictional ride or die. But we don't get that from the Zendaya iteration, and that's not a bad thing.
No.
Yeah, and
it gives her character a certain amount of agency and a certain amount of individuality, and allows her to sort of stand out in the narrative.
It gives her a unique strength.
But I will say this: if you're not going to do it, don't half-ass it. Just don't do it at all.
Yeah.
And hopefully, it does not take too much away from the story, which it didn't. But I did when I read the book. I was like, hold on, man. She's a whole different beast. And you saw my online texting about when I was reading the book, and I was like, yo, hold on, man. There's some things that happen in this book that I did not get in the movie. Like, hold on. Like, I'm getting a whole different perspective.
Book Chani yells Muad'Dib when she goes into battle. Like, she is totally... She understood that he had to marry Ireland. It was not a surprise. She didn't react to it. In fact, that's another thing that I didn't like. I didn't like that because I think one of the beautiful things about Paul and Chani's relationship was that they were supposed to mirror Jessica and Leto one, which is Leto never married Jessica. She was in the book concubine, but in the nicer word is paramour. They weren't married, but she was his wife in all but name. But that was his biggest regret, which he says before he died. I should have married you. Like, why didn't I do that? Paul doesn't marries Ireland for politics, and he makes that clear to her, like very, very clear.
Over and over.
Like almost abusively. I'm not even gonna lie. In fact,
no sex.
For real.
You don't get love.
Very abusive to her in that way. He's like, listen, you will never get my seed. You will never have a child.
Never bear my children.
You'll never bear your children by me. The Carreno line will never continue through you. And you are only my wife in name. I do not love you. I don't hate you, but I do not love you. And that's like how that relationship. And so Ireland steps up in this movie and her role is increased. And so I'm looking forward to that as well, because anytime you get more scenes with Florence Pugh, it's a good day.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I think overall, like, and it's funny because GV brought in Brian K. Vaughan to help him co-write this third movie. And Brian K. Vaughan, he's known for Why the Last Man. He's known for, he did a bunch of TV stuff as well, but he was the one that created The Runaways and Marvel. He had a really long career at Marvel as a comic book writer, as well as DC, and also on his own individual stuff. So I'm really curious to see, and he's a really competent, really dope. So I'm really curious to see this because I don't think he's done anything at this scale in terms of for cinema. So him kind of getting into that, when I saw his name there, it really piqued my interest some more because I was like, that's a very interesting, like, big swing for him to be on this as well. Already with two established, really dope films ahead of time. So I think it's going to be definitely an addition, and I'll think in terms of a subtraction. But yeah, man, you can tell we are all very excited about Dune. the date that it is dropping is going to be very interesting. And but
it really is not. It's not interesting at all.
And pray tell, why is that interesting, Cameron? Please enlighten us.
there are other movies that I will not name that are dropping on the same day.
Avengers Doomsday. Excuse me. Sorry.
They're trying to do a for all the hip hop hands out there, a Kanye and Cameron and 50 Cent drop at the same day. So we'll see how this works out and who in favor will. But as of right now, Dune is looking amazing, and I think we're all pretty excited to see it. So,
and then this round, I'll read the book before I'll watch the film.
Yeah,
well, you got plenty of time, like a lot of time. But I know Sam is like me, and he's got a couple of books on that list. So I know that it's a matter of trying to. I say you got plenty of time, but I know what that really means is you got to move around some of the stuff that you're already reading. So. Yeah.
I'm gonna finish Three Body Problem as quick as possible, then get into the second book of Dune because you said this new movie is a book and a half.
Well, I'm saying that only because of the age.
In all likelihood,
that they're gonna have to bring some things from children, but small things, very small.
Yeah. Let's say this hypothetically, we should buy the movie if you wanted to read the book to understand potentially the full scope of what you're watching. Was it Children of Dune and Dune Messiah? It's the next two books?
Other way around. Dune Messiah and Children of Dune is the third. I recommend reading all the way up to God Emperor Dune because I think that's the complete Atreides saga. If you you don't have to read God Emperor, and trust me, God Emperor is not an easy read. Just because it's 3,800 years. After the death of Paul Atreides and all of that stuff. So but it's really good.
I'll get to it. I'm just for the movie purposes, which book should I be brushed up on?
I would just say Dune Messiah. I don't even think you need to read Children of Dune. The only thing you need to know from Children of Dune is that, Alia's role steps up. Alia, the knife. I don't think she'll be called. I think she will be called Alia the knife, but I think she'll earn it in a different way.
Yeah, probably.
That was taken away from her she wasn't even born yet in Dune Part 2, but in the book she was. But I would just say Dune Messiah. I highly recommend God Emperor Dune because God Emperor Dune was so impactful to me that after I read it, and Josh knows this, I set out writing my own sci-fi thing. That's how much I love that book. And personally, God Emperor Leto Atreides II is like one of my favorite fictional characters of all time.
Yeah, I didn't make it that far. I made it all the way up to Dune Messiah and then stopped for reasons I can't remember. Easily 20 years ago, stopped right there. But
I'll say this.
I do have the mini series, so I can hit you with that.
Okay, because I was gonna say I read the Silmarillion. Ain't nothing too hard now. So
you say that now. Herbert's writing is high on philosophy, bro, and
there's a reason why I didn't read that book. It's not like I didn't just get to it. Like I don't remember why I didn't get to it, but
and then put it down because it probably hurt your brain. Because
it might have. It very well might have.
You gotta because his style and structure is not.
It's very stream of consciousness, man.
It is. He goes to a lot of asides. You have to figure out who's actually the point of view right now. Then he goes back to Leto, and there are characters who are completely new, like the head of House Atreides now is a young girl, and that's his like. It's weird because Leto is her like distant great times 10 uncle or something like that. Because Leto never has like his own kids. Like he continues the Atreides line through Ganima. And I won't tell too much about that. I'll just say that
it's a lot.
It's a lot, and a lot of it really is Frank Herbert's brilliant philosophy and getting you to really question what it means to be a leader, what it means to yield the power to decide the fates of the entire human race. And there are people who exist who have that power, who could make those decisions. What does it mean to be in control of a resource, and how important is a resource to nation building or getting people to comply and things like that? The dangers of space travel and space colonization, which is one of those things you don't think about when you're thinking about Dune. But by that time, you also become aware that this is just another epoch in our own history, one that's taking place in space. And that's one of the coolest things about going to Dune Messiah, because you firmly get that reveal in the connection between, the fictional world that Herbert's created and our real life past. That it's really cool the way it happens, and hopefully hopefully there's some scenes of that in Dune Messiah, because that's one of the, when I first read that, I was like, whoa! I thought that there was some connections there because the Orange Catholic Bible, but it was called the Orange Catholic Bible, which is something I don't never heard of the Catholic Bible referred to that. So there were little pieces like that. But then that next book, it kind of brings that all home in a nice way.
Yeah, can I ask a quick question since we're in the Doom universe? Anybody heard anything about Doom Prophecy?
I think it's going to get canceled, to be honest. I haven't heard anything.
Two seasons, right? Already?
Yeah.
No, one.
Just one.
They got renewed for a second season.
Yeah, they got, But
I don't know if it went into production, though. I don't know if there's any. I honestly see it getting canceled, especially because it's not based on Herbert's stuff. It's based on his son's stuff, and quite frankly, it's just not as good.
No,
it doesn't even come, and you can see that with the show. Like, you can see that with the show, and the show has to tether it to Paul Atreides, otherwise people wouldn't be that interesting. And they did not really do the real interesting. This is how the Bene Gesserit formed. This is how, after the Butlerian Jihad, they rebuild. And it was just like all these things were just thrown out there. There was nothing that really built it to make you appreciate that they had basically almost like a centuries war against machines, and then against what they call thinking machines, which is basically Herbert's pretentious way of saying AI. And they had this whole war, and then they stopped using digital interface, like electronic
technology in
general, which is why all the stuff looks the way it does by the time of Paul Atreides' era. It would have been nice if they had focused on that stuff instead of it just being like, one of the Harkonnens developed a voice because she yelled at the Reverend Mother in a very specific way.
I did not.
She's been working on it all this time. She's more powerful than the Reverend Mother.
Yeah.
I did not mean to open Pandora's box and rip off the Band-Aid. I was just trying to.
Hey man, it's out there. It's out there.
I'm sorry, Karen. You started it.
I was just trying to see if we're going to get a season 2. I have many Doom Prophecy.
It's on the docket. I firmly believe it's going to go away because I think it's probably one of those that's really expensive, and they can move that budget money to other things, especially given that House of the Dragon still has one more season. They're still trying to do the Aegon the Conqueror stuff. They're still trying to do, they're doing
about that.
the 9 voyages of Nymeria, which if they do that, that's going to require Valyria at the peak of its power.
Who's paying for all this?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
apparently we are.
What they got going on, out of all the stuff they got coming, I'm pretty sure Dune Prophecy is probably like way down there based on the way the first one, the response to the first one.
Yeah.
So Dune Prophecy Season 2 is scheduled to premiere in 2026 on HBO Max, following an early renewal and the completion of filming in late 2025.
Yeah, because I was going to say, Yeah,
It's
so I
done.
was gonna say maybe this release is gonna be coincided with the new Dune movie, kind of close to each other potentially.
Possibly, it could.
Yeah,
Oh, very
so
likely.
which might renew some interest just to watch whatever unfolds in season
I
2.
agree. I agree.
So
Yeah,
The first season of Doom Prophecy wasn't terrible. It just it
had a lot more questions. It left me with a lot more questions.
It reeked of the reasons why I never continued reading the Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson books.
and why I will never pick those books up.
And that circles around to real quick. I'm not going to go off on a tangent, I promise. But Kevin J. Anderson is a very prolific, a very supposedly celebrated Star Wars writer, and his books are the ones I really don't get into as much. So it's the double of Frank. It's a double of Brian Herbert not being his dad, and I mean that's not a knock. Like, who is going to be Frank Herbert unless you smoke the drugs that he smoked? I think there was the D that made the statement after he read the first book. He was like, either Frank Herbert is a raging genius or he was really high while he was writing these books.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was a combination of both. I'm pretty sure Frank Herbert, you could tell. I mean, let's just be fair. The whole drinking the water of life, that's just an LSD trip, man. Like that's pretty much what he.
Can I say what I said?
Mind expansion.
Yeah.
Let me say what I said earlier. I was like, oh, this movie is just a space odyssey and they on drugs.
Yeah.
Basically. They on drugs.
More or less.
Spice, Life of Water, all that.
Game of Thrones in space and they high. And they fighting over stuff.
And spice is life. And I mean, the spice extends people. Like, that's another thing that he got wrong. Shaddam was not supposed to appear elderly. He was supposed to appear like a man in his 50s because he's used the spice to extend his life, even though he is 80, 90 years old. Some might even be over 100 at that point. He looks like a man who is in his 50s, like a man in good shape in his 50s, but he doesn't use it enough to where I see he doesn't use it enough to where his eyes turn blue. So that was one of those things, but yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to cut it here before we talk for another 2 hours. But if you've been enjoying the Dune content, I think one of the other things we want to do later on, probably in the year, is do kind of like a page to screen type of thing. Talk about the books of some of these cinema, because a lot of them, just like Cam was like kind of pointing out, was they leave out certain things that sometimes they're important, sometimes they're not. But to the reader, there's those things that we kind of grasp onto where we're like, this would make more sense if, and then we don't see it on screen, so we're always kind of like, wait a minute. And so I think there's a lot of movies like that, but like this is one where, to Dee's credit, like I watched Dune Messiah on Sci-Fi, the 8-hour epic of it, because my parents are super like Dune people. So when I watched it, it did mirror what I read in the book at that time. Like I haven't read it in a long time, so it's something I need to revisit. But yeah, those are those types of things where you're like, sometimes the book doesn't get to the screen, and so but yeah, overall, as you can tell, we're excited. We're going to watch it on the big screen in good sound on IMAX.
We're going to spend $50, $80, $100 to watch this thing.
No.
I'm saving my pennies now.
Get your ass to the theater. None of this. No.
I'm saving my pennies.
I'll say it.
You need
You'll see
to
it
go
in
to the
IMAX
theater.
If we have to pay for you to get you,
bro. For real, I will toss you the dough. You can't not. You can't not. You have to find.
I'm paying for a little Max called a kid. So.
No,
hers will be basically free.
Yeah. Sneak over to the coat.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just
my man.
Pragmatic.
You got it.
Look, I'm not gonna go. I don't pay for too many IMAX movies, so I'm more than likely gonna try to watch this, and I have to get a good seat. I'm not gonna be sitting in the front row on IMAX.
Even if you don't see it in IMAX, it is absolutely imperative that you go see it in a Dolby Cinema theater. You need that in your. I cannot stress to you how much you need that in your life, bro.
I will try my best. I'm not saying I won't go see it in the theater. I'm going to try to see it in the best form. But it's just I've seen the prices of IMAX tickets, and I'm going to go in the middle of the week. I'm trying to get a matinee fee.
You hold on. You don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to go see it in IMAX. You do have to go see it in Dolby Cinema.
Yeah,
that is mandatory.
Yeah,
it's absolutely a must.
I feel like you're not speaking just to me. I feel like you're speaking to the people who are going to watch.
Anybody, truly, anyone listening, just please, I beg you, just go see it in Dolby Cinema. Find the best audio theater that you can find and go see it there. You will not regret it. I'm not going to say I'll give you your money back if you didn't like it, but I find it difficult to believe. I find it difficult to believe that you will not like seeing this movie in proper Dolby, not like any old Dolby Cinema, whatever Dolby Cinema theater you have near you that is like the best bombastic, like cleanest sound. You need that in your life.
Yeah.
On that note.
Yep. And on that note, we'll wrap it. And I take whatever Josh tells me to do when it comes to audio. So like I said, he had me watching Top Gun Maverick in the best audio in New York City, and literally we felt every roar of the of everything. We just you get the goosebumps.
I will not steer you wrong.
So, but yeah, thanks for rocking with us. We will talk to you soon. Go see Dune. We're excited. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Like, subscribe, do the things, the follows, the stuff, and stuff.
Later.